Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peterisms, where I tell stories of my life and just little things that I have learned as I have grown into the person that I am today. And I'm like picking twigs off of Boo Radley right now. You want to say hi to the camera, Boo Radley? Look at him. He's like, I just woke up, Dad. He's been helping me with all kinds of videos and stuff today. So the story that I'm going to talk about today is really about how we deal with grief in different ways and how I believe that every experience that we go through with grief is different. And that's why I think that nobody can really give great advice about grief, not even me, because my grief is different than your grief, is different than somebody else's grief, is different than all of our experiences of grief. So none of my experiences are the same or similar at all. Like, some of the same emotions might be the same, but the experiences are completely different. And we're going to talk about today the passing of my aunt. I haven't talked a whole lot about this on my vlog or even on this channel. So my mother had one sister, that was my Aunt Kathy, and my mom and my aunt grew up with their mom. Their dad passed away when my mom was 4 years old. My aunt was 3 years older than her. And my aunt and my Uncle Dave have one daughter, that's Caroline, my cousin, who's 3 years older than me. And she is an only child, and I'm an only child, and we were raised by only sisters. So we were very, very close growing up, and my mom and my aunt were extremely close. And in fact, because it was just my mom, my aunt, and my grandma when they were growing up, my aunt felt this obligation to take care of my mom and to always look out for her. And even though they didn't always get along and they fought at times, they had this bizarre bond of sisterhood that was extremely close. And my mom, you know, when she got sick, my aunt was an integral part of helping me decide what to do and the decisions that we made. And my aunt was there every day at the hospital. I mean, literally every day that my mom was in the hospital, my aunt was there for hours. And, you know, she helped me with everything, right down to the very end of helping to decide what to do and taking her off life support. And I think it was probably the most difficult decision my aunt ever had to make in her entire life. So, you know, after my mom passed away, and it was 10 years ago this May, Boo Radley is back here, like, digging in the ground. My mom passed away 10 years ago this May, and, you know, after my mom passed away, my aunt really became that connection to my past, my connection to my childhood. The only one that really remembered anything, you know, other than my dad, but my dad wasn't present for my mom's side of Christmases and Thanksgivings and Easters and, you know, family vacations and all of that. My aunt was the connection to all of that. And as was my cousin Caroline and my Uncle Dave. But really my aunt, because she was the most emotional out of all of them, she was the one that I had the memories with. I could say stuff to her about my mom in high school or my mom in college, and, you know, like, my aunt knew all the stories. She knew the stories about my grandma that I had heard from my mom. So, you know, family recipes, all that stuff were tied to my aunt. And my aunt did a fantastic job of being that connection for me. And, you know, a lot of times, well, what I experienced was when my mom passed away, like, a lot of her friends were like, now, you know, I'm going to be in your life all the time. I'm going to call you in 2 weeks. We're going to go out to lunch. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. You're not going to be able to get rid of me. And I haven't heard from those people since the funeral. And I think that's just life. I think that's just how life goes, you know? But my aunt, she said those same things, and she was there for me. I mean, she was there. When Alex and I, you know, when I brought Alex into the family, she accepted him, no questions asked. And their relationship was, I mean, unbelievable. Alex was absolutely devastated when my aunt passed away, and to a point where I had never seen him that upset before. And, you know, before we got married, my aunt sat us down, she took us out to lunch, and talked to us about the importance of marriage, and, you know, just like she would her own son. And she was there for my wedding, and represented my mom's side of the family. And, you know, she just was, I don't know, I miss her like crazy. And in fact, I live like a block and a half from where my aunt and uncle lived when I was growing up. They moved probably, let's see, like 5 or 6 years ago. They moved into a condo. But my entire childhood and adulthood, up until 5 or 6 years ago, they lived in a house like a block and a half from me, which is one of the reasons why my mom bought the condo that I live in now, because it was so close to my aunt and uncle. So anyway, my aunt got lung disease, and and it was really bad. She was on an oxygen tank, and she had to carry with her and things like that. And last January, she passed away. Now, what's interesting about this is, if you've heard me talk about my grieving with my mom and things like that, you know, I was very, very numb when my mom passed away. Like, I don't know that I really could connect to the emotions or the feelings that I was feeling at that time. I don't know that I really knew what to feel, if that makes sense. Like, I just knew, like, it's so surreal when you lose a parent that you can't really put words around it or put words on it or anything like that. It's like, I'm never going to talk to this person that's been in my life forever again. Like, it's weird, right? And in fact, when my aunt passed away, I remember standing, in my aunt's garage talking to my cousin that day, and she just looked at me and she said, I didn't know how this would feel. She goes, it's surreal, isn't it? And I said, that's the only word to explain it. It's like you cannot explain it to somebody until they go through it, And today, I was outside on the street walking the dogs, and one of my aunt's best friends lives in my neighborhood, and she was walking by, and we started talking, and she was like, how's your uncle? And I'm like, he's good. And she's like, I've been meaning to call him. And I was like, you should. He'd really love to hear from you. And she's like, I miss Kathy so much. And I just became so overwhelmed with emotion, I got so upset about it when I came inside. Not that she had mentioned that to me, but just like, I think sometimes I feel it so much stronger for my aunt's passing than I did for my mom's passing. And I was telling this friend of hers out there, she said, what's it like for you, now, they're both gone? And she didn't say it like that, but she was like, are you doing okay since, your mom and your aunt are both gone? And I said, what's so weird is I said, I almost, get more upset now than I did 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And I said, I think what it is for me is it's finally that bookend or that closure to my childhood. That entire era of, my childhood and growing up and the people that were the players in there are all gone. My uncle is still alive, but he was not somebody he's not a person you sit around and tell stories with. He just isn't, And my cousin Caroline is not as emotional, and you guys are probably like, well, that's a good thing. And she's not as emotional as sensitive as I am, So if I call her up on the phone and I'm like, hey, Caroline, do you remember? She doesn't want to have those conversations. She's not, my friend Tanya is very much let's relive memories. Caroline's not so much like that. And so, we will sit and tell stories at Thanksgiving and Easter and stuff like that about funny stuff that's happened, but not the way that we used to. And, even family dinners have changed, and, getting together has changed, and it changed for the good, some, and changed for, I don't know, not the bad, but it's just different. You know what I mean? It's just not the same, and little nuances are different. And, it's interesting because the first Thanksgiving that my mom was not there, I drove up to my cousin's house, and Alex was with me because we had started dating by that point. And I had given my mom's car to my cousin's stepson, and it was parked in front, and I lost it. And that was the first time that I really, I cried a lot at the funeral and that week and stuff like that. But after that, I kind of went numb. And seeing his car in front of my cousin's house, my mom's car that she had driven for so many years, I just lost it. And I remember looking at Alex, and I was like, she should be here. She should be here, Well, I don't know what it is about Thanksgiving, but last Thanksgiving, was really the first holiday that I had spent with my aunt or with my cousin and my uncle and her son and her family and stuff since my aunt had passed away. And Alex said something about it on the way over there. He was like, this is the first time that we've done something with the family together since the funeral. And I was like, really? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, oh God, that's weird, And so we were all sitting around, and Caroline, she brought it up. She was like, this is the first time we've all been together since mom passed away, And I just lost it. And I remember I looked over, and it was across from my uncle. Caroline, her husband, had gotten up and walked out. And for some reason, I just was kind of like, my aunt should be here, And, but she lived a great life. She had a wonderful life. And I think a lot of times grieving is selfish. I think it's our wanting somebody to be back for us, not for them. My aunt was in a lot of pain. She was ready to go. She was, I talked about this in my video the other day about how, at the end of her life, she wasn't afraid. She was just ready to go. And I think there's such peace, such serenity, and such solace, and grace, actually, living grace, and just this being prepared and just ready to go and not being afraid, you know? And she was at the end. She was so ready to go. I don't know that it even occurred to me until like a couple months after that. And it was really around Easter that I was like, yeah, it's different, you know? Like, my family's different. Like, I don't have anybody really to relive these stories with. I have one friend of my mom's that was her sorority sister in college that I talk to on a regular basis. She's like somebody that kept in contact with me. If you watch my vlog, it's Susie. It's my aunt. I call her Aunt Susie. She says, this is Mother Susie. And I love her. And, you know, she is, like, I always get emotional talking about her. She's like the only one that remembers anything, you know, anymore. And I have the pictures. And I have the memories in my head. But what happens when you no longer have anybody to share those memories and those stories with? Because the people that are around me today, they don't know those stories. They didn't live those stories. They don't really have the same impact or meaning on them, you know? And so, I don't know. It was, you know, not just, I don't think the passing of my aunt. I think it was the passing of a period of my life. It was the end of an era. And I think that not just grieving my aunt when she passed, but I grieved that whole period of my life that was now gone. And that has been something for me that has been really, really hard to accept in the last year. And I just drove by their house tonight coming home, and I was like, yeah, it's like weird, you know? She's gone, you know, my mom's gone and my grandma's gone and everybody. And my cousin said to me recently, I shared this in my vlog, she said, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could just have one more day with my mom and your mom and grandma? But we can't, you know, and life goes on and life changes. And as much as I miss them, I would not want to just, you know, sit at a dinner table at Thanksgiving for the rest of my life reliving memories. I want to create new memories. I want to enjoy my life. I want to appreciate where I came from. I want to appreciate the past. I want to allow my grief to turn into a rebirth and an enjoyment for life. My mom and my aunt would not want me to sit in sorrow and just be like, oh, woe is me. I'm so sad. I'm so sad that, you know, they're gone. They would want me to live the best life possible. They lived the best life possible. And I think that that's a great message for your children or for, you know, the people that come behind us is live the best life possible. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow.